I am 𝗲𝗃𝗽𝗵𝗃, metaphysical master in a millennial age, and it is my life's purpose to guide you and organizations along an enlightened path. So I invite you to sit comfortably and tune in as I welcome you to the Meta Business Millennial, where we get the real conversations you won't get in the boardroom so that we understand this is exactly the path we need to be on in order to grow, evolve, and thrive. Greetings, I am 𝗲𝗃𝗽𝗵𝗃, also known as Master L, and welcome to today's episode of the Meta Business Millennial podcast. As always, I am so happy to be with you all here today, this beautiful day, and I am also joined by a special guest who I'll introduce in a moment. But before we get started, I really want to encourage you all, if you haven't already, to follow me across social media at I am 𝗲𝗃𝗽𝗵𝗃. Also, if you feel so called, certainly share this episode with a friend, leave us some comments. We want to hear from you, okay? So without further ado, I really want to introduce a dear new friend of mine, love coach Mariya. I met her on the Austin scene and have just really kind of clicked in terms of alignment of our ideas and values, and I'm so honored to welcome Miss Mariya to the show.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be here.
Awesome. And, Mariya, just very briefly, is not only a love coach, but she really helps women to set healthy boundaries. So we're really going to get into the boundaries conversation because we all need them and we haven't operated well with them. And so I really want to kind of just jump in, very intentionally with Mariya, because we can get into the stories and the backstories later, but what is the boundaries coaching? Why is it important? Just kind of give us that whole intro, if you will.
Sure. I've been coaching for over 10 years now, and my area of focus has shifted a few times over the years. Prior to boundaries, I was actually working with women around insecure attachment, and boundaries was a big piece of that. And I felt like there was just so much in there, and I wanted to shift a little bit and get more into the realm of boundaries and also tap into sort of different markets around boundaries as well, because it doesn't just show up in our relationships, which, by the way, I feel like relationships are a really powerful mirror for our self-love.
Yes.
And I also find that entrepreneurship is a pretty powerful mirror for our relationship with ourselves as well. And the way that, right? And the way that boundaries show up in work life, in business, I feel is really relevant as well. So mostly, though, I find that people tend to think that boundaries are mean, and so they either avoid them or fulfill that prophecy. And so what that tends to look like is flimsy fences and spiked walls. I teach people how to install selective gates instead.
Ooh, I love the selective gates. Ooh, we're going to get into that. But before we do, obviously this is the Meta Business Millennial, and you are an entrepreneur, and I really have been orienting my messaging and all that I do towards women entrepreneurs. And I really would love for folks to hear your specific entrepreneurial journey. I really love the Austin story, if I could be honest. And, and really just allowing people to see what your journey's been like and how it's brought you to where you are today.
My journey has been a long, meandering one. I have had, counting liberally, roughly 40 jobs, and that includes some gig work, some self-employment, some temporary positions, some long-term positions, but even my W-2 positions are in the mid-20s. I've had a lot of different jobs. I've worked in the travel industry. I worked with dogs for a lot of years, got into animal behavior and training, and I've always been interested in psychology, though. And that was part of what drew me to dog training, but then I found that it was a little bit challenging because people often bring their dogs to you and they're like, here, fix this. And you're like, the dog's perfect. It's your relationship with your dog that's going to need to change, which means you're going to need to do some work. And I found my way to coaching, and it was much more upfront which I really appreciate because they're like, hey, help me with this instead of fix this other thing, if that makes sense. So we were more on the same page about, you know, who was responsible for what and where and how. So as I said, I've been coaching for 10 years now, and it's been a journey. When I first I moved from Seattle, I sold my dog walking and training business and moved to Austin with a goal to start an eco hostel. And I was running up against some issues with that. Meanwhile, I had already started writing my first self-help book. And I hired a new friend who was a coach to help me sort out some of the difficulties I was having with this eco hostel goal. And after our first session, I was like, wait a second. This feels really aligned. I feel like maybe this is actually what I should be doing. And in reflecting on all of the like brick walls that I kept coming up against with that other pursuit, it just felt like this had a lot more flow and resonance and alignment in it. So she said I happen to have a course to teach people how to become a coach. So I took her course and officially hung my shingle April of 2015. So it's been a decade now, and it's been a journey.
Yes, it sounds like it. And I know that, you know, when we're taking these sort of meandering paths, there are moments where we feel like, damn, like, am I ever going to get there? You know what I'm saying? Like, there's always like a destination we're trying to get to. And obviously when we're doing the entrepreneurial thing, I'm sure this is part of your journey too, like the finances. Like, how am I going to support myself along this journey? Like, how am I going to pay my bills? I'm building a whole business and I have to take care of my life. Like, how does that even work? You know? So, you know, really want to kind of start digging into that for you. Like, how did you kind of manage all of those different changes and nuances and still like stay alive, like have a house over your head? Like, that's really tough.
It is. And, you know, on a side note, one thing I'll say too is that I've noticed a lot of the solopreneurs out there who seem to be killing it. It seems, upon further and deeper inspection, it seems that a lot of the ones that look like they're killing it are just faking it till they make it and haven't really made it yet. Doesn't mean they won't. Or if they really are killing it, they have a trust fund, they have parents, they have a partner, they have a team. There's some other support that they have. For me, I have been fortunate to have had some support. When I first started with this, so when I moved here, I wanted to start that eco hostel. I had some money from an inheritance from my grandparents, and I was like, it was actually in a trust, and I was allowed to make some early withdrawals for investments, and I was like, this is an investment. And I had enough that I could put down on a house to turn into that sort of bed and breakfast style hostel. I wanted it to be a little bit more intimate. But anyway, it wasn't really going to make the whole thing happen. I was still going to need a small business loan, and the banks didn't want to support me because I had never worked in a hostel before. And I don't know if you or any of your listeners have been in a hostel, but two things. First of all, it's a pretty straightforward business model. And secondly, you don't work there as a job, it's work trade. If they hire people, it's travelers who are passing through. So it's not really an easy thing to just go get a job at a hostel. But I was like, man, I have a business degree. I have started and sold my own business already. I have stayed in like 20 hostels. Like, I can do this, but that wasn't enough on paper to convince the bank. So I was like, fine, I will go get a job at a hotel for a year so that it can look like I have some related experience, even though I wasn't then, and I'm still not really convinced that whatever you learn at a hotel is transferable to a hostel. But again, the banks don't know that, so whatever. However, in that time, I discovered that the market in Austin was pricing me out. It was rising so fast. People were moving here, the market was rising, and I got priced. So like my fixed budget for what I could start a business on and what I would need a loan for, and what, collateral. Anyway, I kind of ended up getting priced out of that option. And then I was like, well, now what? Can I explore other things? And that's kind of what got me to start working with my coach. And then I was like, okay, so I shifted gears. I was like, I'll make this happen. And I didn't like the job at the hotel. I didn't need it anymore. So I quit, and I was like, all right. So I was like, what do you call it? Intentionally unemployed. And
Okay.
I was like, I'm just going to make starting this business my full-time job. And so I got out there, I hit the pavement. I was doing networking. I was trying to learn marketing. And meanwhile, I'm just living on savings, essentially. I have no income. And I wasn't living very lavishly. I wasn't doing wild, crazy things, but, paying rent, buying groceries, little expenses that come up with networking and lunches and things like that. And I ate through all of my savings and went to credit, and I ate through all of my credit, believing, I was like, it's going to, any day now, it's going to happen. These clients are going to start coming in. This business is going to take off. And I kept following all of the, manifestation advice, visualize, know what you want, do what you love, and the universe will, bring you the resources. And I just kept believing and believing, and I believed myself into bankruptcy. And that was a challenge. It was certainly a last resort. I tried everything I could. I even left a really sweet spot in Clarksville, which, if you're familiar with Austin, is a nice place to be. And went and stayed with my sister in Colorado for a little while, just still doubling down on that, before finally she was like, after a couple months, she was like, you're going to need to get a job. And I was like, no. And at that point I was like, well, I left Austin because I didn't want to get a job, but I didn't really want to leave Austin. So I went back to Austin and got a job, but I was like, still like, how am I going to figure this out? How am I going to make this work? Mm-hmm. And eventually I started doing the math, and I was like, there isn't really a good way to make it work. So I tried like exploring possibilities for like debt consolidation, etc. And then finally I was just faced to the facts that I was going to have to file for bankruptcy, and I did, and went through all of those proceedings. And it's kind of a lengthy process. And then at the end of it, you're what they call discharged. It just means the process is complete. And then it's like from there that the clock starts ticking on like when it comes off of your record. But in other events in my life at that time, my father passed away 3 months after my discharge from bankruptcy. And I got another pretty sizable inheritance, which was a bittersweet blessing. And it took me a while because there was a lot emotionally to sort through with the bankruptcy. It felt like a really big failure wound. And then of course all of the emotional aspects of losing a parent, dealing with his estate. There was just a lot. It took me a while. And then just other things in my life, back and forth with the business, romantic upheavals. And eventually, I finally read The Alchemist, and it really helped me rewrite my story. And that's when I noticed, I felt fortunate at the time, but I really saw how divine that timing was, that the bankruptcy was able to go through, and then the universe gave me another chunk of money, and it was like, you're not done yet.
Yes. Yes. I love that. I got to hand clap to that, because you guys that are listening or watching, tuning in, this is actually how it works. This whole time when you're like, oh, she's doing all the manifestation and she's doing that work and it's not working for her. Actually, it is working for her. Even the bankruptcy opportunity is a learning one to understand how this financial system even works, you guys. And I know sometimes we look at things that are happening in our lives as failures, as she mentioned, or shameful or humiliating, because actually in many ways the dark forces want us to take on this kind of low vibrational emotional weight, if you will, when in reality all of these experiences are meant to teach us, because we have a lot of lessons that we need to learn, not just as human beings, but as entrepreneurs, as business owners. We need to understand how to navigate credit and finances and cash flow. And the only reason we can understand how to do it is through making mistakes, if you will, and turning those, those lessons into blessings. And that's exactly why you see Mariya getting blessed, 3 months after the bankruptcy. Okay, here come the pile of money. All right. Like, that's just like, you can't write these stories. This is something that's divinely aligned. And so I just want to that's why I got almost like chills, like even just repeating that, because it is exactly how it works. Like, I myself am going through a really rough season, like legally. I've already shared with Mariya my challenges around my custody and essentially losing custody of my son. And yeah, people can be like, oh, she lost her son, she must be a bad mother. Like all of these negative connotations that come through these experiences, when in reality, I already know that this experience is meant to serve my highest good. I can't tell you all the details now of what it's meant to be. However, I know in it, and I know in the storm, that there is not just a rainbow, but there is a motherfucking huge pot of gold on the end of that rainbow for me. People don't go through these kind of experiences and don't get blessed at the end of it, okay? So I just had to high five you on that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, thank you so much for being vulnerable and sharing that story, because I can relate. So many other women can relate. The finances, the challenges, the relationships, all of it, the upheavals, the deaths, they all really are emotionally, and maybe sometimes unbearable. It's just like, this is just like too much, but in many ways it's alchemizing. I love how you brought up the alchemist, alchemizing our energy so that we can really start to hold more in the direction and path in which we're going. And so I think this is a great sort of like segue into like the work you do now, and how you've sort of brought in, we talked about the metaphysics, the spirituality, the manifestation into your coaching and what that starts to look like today.
Sure. Well, and just to bring listeners up to speed as well, for my personal journey getting to where I am too in the business, I have been sort of in and out of this coaching venture over this decade, because sometimes it gets really hard and you're like, man, maybe this isn't it. Maybe this isn't where I'm meant to be. And every time I tried to step away, I was just pulled back in. And after a few repetitions of that, I'm like, okay, clearly I'm not really allowed. This is my path of purpose. It's going to keep calling me back to it. And sometimes still I have moments of doubt and darkness, but it's like the cycles are so much shorter now, and the belief is back. And it took me a long time. I felt like that story of that I believed myself into bankruptcy put a wedge between me and manifestation for a while, because I felt like I couldn't trust it because it wasn't serving me. But recently, over the past few years, I had a day job to support me in building this business and, having a roof over my head. Sometimes entrepreneurs, yes, we do have to hustle and have a job and our business. And my goal was to get some steady clients coming in before I left that job. But I also expected that to take a year or two after starting the job. 4 years into the job, I was losing my damn mind. I'm not even joking. It felt like my skeleton was trying to crawl out of my skin on a frequent basis. And dynamics at that job kept shifting as well. And there was kind of a major shift that happened about a year ago. And of course, you're going to experience some chaos and a transition, but it didn't wind down. In fact, it just kept amping up to the point where I started having heart palpitations, probably some panic attacks. I had to lay flat on the ground just to feel like I could get a full breath. It's like, this job, man, I want to leave this job so bad. But because last time I was not employed and trying to build my business, I went bankrupt. I was like, I can't do that again. Right. And then, girl, they crossed a hard boundary of mine. I had just stated this boundary 2 weeks ago, and then they're like, by the way, you're actually going to do that, but even more. And I was like, no, I'm not. And so I quit. And I wasn't ready in my business for where I wanted, but man, I tell you, the relief that came from that was huge. That job was so misaligned for me. And the funny thing too is part of what, it took me about an hour or two to wrestle with the decision, but that's it. And the thing that really helped me decide to leave was hearing my own voice coaching my clients about the importance of honoring our own boundaries in terms of showing up for our inner child and building that self-trust. And the fact that I had already stated that boundary, not to them, but to myself, that I told myself that I was allowed to be a no to that. And by the way, it was, I had been filling in for this role and I was like, I don't want to keep doing that. And then 2 weeks later, they're like, actually, you're going to do it all the time now. I was like, oh my gosh, are you kidding me? And I was like, I already told myself that I wasn't going to have to do that. So now they have kind of put me in the position where I have to leave then, because I told myself that I could be a no to that. And if I were to go back on that, that would erode all of the self-trust that I had been building with myself over the past few years.
Right.
So now, also being real on the entrepreneurial journey, I am just, living off savings again. And it was really scary at first, stepping back into what looked like a similar situation of being unemployed and trying to build my business. But from the first step I took into it and every other step since then, I'm like, this is not the same place. I am not the same person. 9 years have gone by. Back then, I wasn't even embodied. I didn't know how to tap into the felt experiences of vibrational frequencies. I didn't know how to regulate my nervous system. All of the manifesting I was doing was purely in the head, not energetic at all. And I didn't have any support either. Now I've lived in Austin for over a decade. I'm in a coaching program that's by women, for women who coach women, and it's for business and it's the spiritual, the, mindset and the strategies. I didn't have the strategies then either. Like, this is a totally different game, and I am super confident that I'm going to make this work, and I'm committed to not going back to a W-2. Like, I will sell my house and move to Costa Rica before and I don't really want to. I love it here in Austin, but I really don't want to go back. 9 to 5 is not aligned with my nervous system. So, so that's my living into my boundaries. In terms of what I teach, though, I think that what really motivates me is I feel like there's this really common message out there that implies that we have to sacrifice our compassion in order to become empowered and boundaried. And what I have found is that when we empower our compassion, it becomes big enough for ourselves as well as others, and our boundaries become healthier than ever.
I love that. Okay. There was so much to unpack here, but I really want to just resonate with that last statement about the compassion, because the work that we're doing with the boundaries, particularly the inner child stuff that you brought up earlier, is really healing that part of ourselves that didn't have those healthy boundaries, or didn't have that protection, or didn't have that nurturing when we were children. So we have to cultivate that for ourselves. And by having that compassion for ourselves, then it spills over to others. Like, when you were saying too, like, people think boundaries is just like being like a hardball or, being an asshole. Actually, it's being able to honor yourself and then communicate healthily to other people. You don't have to be an asshole to communicate your boundaries. You can be very gentle and very loving and very respectful in communicating your boundaries, because you have that compassion and love for yourself. You're just like, actually, that doesn't work for me, guys. And that's all you have to say. It's really that simple. Like, that's just not how I roll. It's really, really simple when you have that knowing of self. And obviously you've gone through like these incredible challenges in your life to really anchor into, like you said, and be in that embodiment of what it feels like to honor yourself. And kudos to you for stepping away. That embodiment you had to do. You had to step away from something that was dishonoring you and step into the unknown even into the what you thought felt like or looked like rather the same situation, but it feels completely different. And it feels different because you are different. Like I'm embodying you're in a whole new timeline. Like I've done the work, I've done the healing, I'm honoring myself, and now I'm stepping into my purpose with more discernment, with more knowledge, with more knowing, with more wisdom, with more truth, with more compassion, with healthier boundaries. So of course, this time it's actually going to work, you know, and and I can probably still go to Costa Rica and have that house there too, you know. And so I really think that your story is really inspiring for women who are finding ourselves, like same for me, in the same cycles. Like I've been through the cycle too with my son at 1 year old, went through court issues and custody issues, and I was separated from him for 30 days. This is a longer time period, but that time I literally thought I was going to commit suicide every day. I woke up every morning, I looked at his crib, and I wanted to kill myself. And I lived that way for that whole entire 30 days. So this time, one thing I knew I was not going to do is want to kill myself every day. So I had to do things differently. I had to, of course, embody that higher energy, that joyful energy, that hopeful energy, that trusting energy, that everything is going to work out for me and my son way better than I could have ever imagined. Even though this looks like hell, it looks like shit, is just humiliating on the exterior, but in reality, this is serving our highest good. So these are things too that we have to come into a knowing as women entrepreneurs, and the ebbs and flows of business, that cycles of life, that things are going to look bad, but one thing we can control is how we feel about it. So you did that. You are doing that.
Yes. And I've put in a lot of work. And I wasn't willing to erode it with, for security that was bad for me, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So.
Because that's not security if it's bad for you.
Right? Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting too. I've definitely noticed, I mean, not having an income can be a little bit nerve-wracking. However, as much as there is a little bit of anxiety in my current state, I am very aware of how worlds apart different it is from the anxiety I was feeling in the massive misalignment of that job. Like that was so much worse. Like this I can do. But I mean, I'm also going to say, I think that not everyone is designed to be an entrepreneur. But
I agree.
For those of us who are, like, we live for this ride. This ride I can handle. Right. And
yes.
It's a rocky one, though.
Yes.
And
I also, I mean, we don't have to get into the nitty gritty details, but that idea of the income too has to be revisited, because when we're moving more into this super abundance, this abundant mindset, this abundance work, like you said, our money, our resources are coming through different channels, and the opportunity, not that someone will need to die for you to get your money, but for you, it's shown up for you. And it's shown up right when you needed it in the quantities that you needed it in too. So it's just like the income piece is such a variable one, because the way our resources and our abundance shows up for us may not look like the usual exchange, dollar for dollar, energy for action type of situation, when in reality it's coming to us as we need it in the right quantities, in the right time. So certainly for you and for other women out there who are really hung up on the check or the benefits or the whatever, we're kind of used to that tit for tat, we have to start allowing for more variability in how our resources flow to us.
Absolutely. And like on a meta plane as well, like it's not just the money too. Like, for example, with the support of the coaching program I'm in, I'm following, after throwing spaghetti at the wall for a decade, I'm happy to just have someone tell me these are the things to do, and I'm like, fine, I'm just going to do it without question. So I'm doing the things that they say. And like, for example, I'm posting on social media more now than I have in the past. I think that's true. I don't know. I've gone through phases, but I'm like consistent. I have like a strategy now that I didn't really have before. And I'm just showing up And the funny thing is, like, I may or may not get people reaching out to me this week from social media, but it's the energy, like I'm doing the action, I'm showing up. And then I go to a networking event and I'm already more comfortable about talking what I do because I'm more practiced at it through the social media. And B, like I'll have people reach out to me that I didn't even make a strong connection with just because I'm generating that energy.
Yes, yes, 100%. And, getting more into like what you are doing with your current work and your current program, do you want to speak to, like, I know you even talked about, right, you wrote a book. Like, what are some of the frameworks or some of the I guess you would say systems that you use in your coaching that you find useful for yourself or for people that you work with? Because I really want to start getting into what it is that you actually do.
Sure. I mainly work with clients one-on-one. I've tried group programs, and maybe I'll circle back to them in the future, but I don't know that it's aligned for me, and that's okay. Like, not every business model is right for everyone. But I do love doing workshops, so I have also been doing some workshops for like yoga studios, co-working spaces. I'm also trying to tap into kind of the corporate in the sense of like, hey, corporations, larger companies who invest in employee wellness programs for your team, I can come in and do a boundaries masterclass for your team as well and help improve productivity, employee happiness, etc. But in the one-on-one work, over the years, I have written and self-published 3 books that are on Amazon. I'm working on a 4th one. My full name is Mariya Graestone. If you Google that on Amazon, you'll find the books. But the 4th one is in the works, and it's just going to be on boundaries and specifically the 𝗧𝗃𝗃𝗃 method that I have developed.
Yes. Let's talk about that.
Sure. And just as a quick recap, selective gates are an alternative to flimsy fences and spiked walls. Flimsy fences being where we say yes too often, and spiked walls where we say no too harshly. And so selective gates are a way to stay connected with the other person when we are upholding a boundary, and largely drawing our boundaries around behaviors instead of people as well. And the 𝗧𝗃𝗃𝗃 method that I've developed as an acronym for 𝗧𝗃𝗃, the first part is to ground in your body and your values. And then you want to assess your capacity and your true yes, because boundaries are not all about no. It's that if you're connected to what you're actually a yes to, what the yes behind the no is, the no comes out a lot more easily. And I'll do a quick tangent on that. My favorite example, just like a benign thing, is a friend invites me out on a Sunday night and I don't really feel like it. If I'm not connected to my yes, I might be really apologetic about my no. Like, oh gosh, I'm so sorry, I can't, I don't want to, or whatever. And then they might twist my arm and do a yes. Or I might be a little more abrasive and be like, no, God, it's a Sunday night. But if I'm connected to my yes and I know that I'm a yes to staying in, I can just, my no can come, instead of from that like contracted energy that a no often is, your no can be as expansive as a yes, because your no is a yes to your yes. For example, I know that I'm a yes to staying in, and if you ask me if I want to go out, I'm going to say, no, thank you, I'm good. Like, it's a totally different vibe. Anyway, so ground in your body and your values, assess your capacity and your true yes. Trust in the other's ability to manage. We are rarely anyone's only option. Express your no without disconnecting. My favorite tool for that is following a no with a yes. I'm not available for that, but I am available for this. And then steward your precious resources. And I feel like one of the big things that a lot of people, especially in this metaphysics, spiritual space, is we feel like, it's that whole abundance versus scarcity thing. And we feel like we're supposed to be abundant. And if we admit that we have limits, then we're going to limit ourselves. But there's a huge difference between abundance and scarcity mindset versus actual abundance and scarcity in the world. Like, we only have 24 hours in a day. You only have so much attention, so many fucks to give. Like, at any given point, you got to kind of like regiment those and when I realized that sometimes scarcity is what makes things really valuable, like diamonds and gold, it helped me step into a position of honor, seeing myself as a noble steward of things like my time, energy, money, attention, and recognizing that I have to be responsible in managing my resources so that I have enough for the people and causes I care most about. And so on an ongoing basis, when we communicate about our boundaries, it's with ownership. And it's never about trying to control someone else. It's never about what someone else is doing or needs to be doing differently. Boundaries are all about what we will do for us. And so I can tell someone like, hey, when the conversation gets heated, I get activated, and so I'm going to need to step away from the conversation. And that's just a gift of information about cause and effect. And then the most important part, that's why that S of the Gates method is stewarding your precious resources. That means you've got to follow through on that consistently, not just for the value of the benefit of the relationship, but for you, just like I had to do with that job.
Yes, I love that. So can you walk us through what each of those acronyms mean? I didn't realize they were each standing for something.
So the short is ground, assess, trust, express, and steward.
Ground, accept,
assess,
assess, ground, assess, trust,
express,
and
steward.
then steward. Oh, wow. That's so good.
By the way,
that's really good. Ground, assess, trust, express, steward. Okay.
I do have the 𝗧𝗵𝗵𝗿𝗁.com, and it's all broken down there too.
The 𝗧𝗵𝗵𝗿𝗁.com. Yeah, because I feel like, wow, yes, the grounding, assessing, trusting, the expression, and then stewarding your time, your resources. Like that's so perfect for this framework that you're building around the boundaries, because I feel like a lot of times people need that step by step, myself included. I really loved how you were saying that abundance versus scarcity, and how, think of yourself as, having that nobility, if you will. Like, I'm a precious resource. Like, I can't just be giving all my fucks to everyone. Like, that's just so perfect, and being able to know and trust in that, and then being able to consciously express that to people, but with that no and a yes. Like, that's so perfect. Like, no, I can't do this, or no, I won't be able to go there. However, I have this opportunity, or we can think about this, and really allowing for people to not be let down too in your communication of your boundaries. And really, one thing that I love too about setting the healthy boundaries is that it actually, the embodiment of it, as we spoke to earlier, and the action of it too, the expression of it, shows people too how they can set healthy boundaries. Because as we honor ours, then not only does it give people more respect for us, but it also is a demonstration for how they can do it for themselves. And a lot of times, like we all know, our inner child traumatized as fuck. I'm always talking about that on this show, especially my own childhood and my own growing up, and having to spend most of my healing journey healing from that. A lot of us have had these childhoods, maybe not as traumatic, where all of our needs weren't met. And so we want to make sure that we're finding the time to make sure our needs are met, make sure we're tended and cared for, and then we open up and care for others. So I think fundamentally that's a beautiful, approach, is the Gates method.
Thanks. Yeah. And again, speaking of meta, I like it too because it's on the macro. Going through those steps is how you build the foundation for not just doing boundaries, but becoming a boundaried person. And in the moment, it's a quick thing, like ground, assess. I'm going to trust you to deal with my no. I'm going to give my no, and then I'm going to honor it. So it's like, it's in the moment, and it's the micro and the macro. And speaking also to what you said about modeling it for other people, I also just want to add a little anecdote. When I first encountered truly healthy boundaries in other people, it was with a local community who practice authentic relating. And it was just like, they were so comfortable in their no that it left me feeling safe to be upfront about my no's with them as well. I was like, oh, well, and the way that their no's, like that they would deliver it without disconnecting. They wouldn't get apologetic. They wouldn't get abrasive. It was just no, but they were still there with me, and it helped me recognize that a no can be not personal. Like, it wasn't about me. It wasn't a no to me. It was just a no to whatever was on offer. And it felt safe to receive the no. It felt safe to give my no. And then I also realized, well, if they're so comfortable saying no, then their yeses are sincere. And that means also that I don't have to like question each yes with, are you sure? Where I'm like deeply concerned that they're just going to resent me later, because obviously that's what I've been living, right? Like, so many people will do that. They'll say yes when they don't really mean it because they feel obligated for whatever reason. And then they get mad at me later because, like, apparently I asked for too much. But I'm like, why is that my responsibility? Maybe, like, I trusted that you meant yes when you said yes, and now you're mad at me? Like, that's not fair. And it's such a funny backwards thing, because we'll say yes instead of no because we don't want to be mean, but then we get resentful and actually be mean.
Yeah.
So yeah, when you model healthy boundaries, not only does it help other people see what healthy boundaries can be like, but it creates safety and trust in the relationship.
Period. I love that. Well, we're getting close to time here, so I want to give you the space just in case we haven't touched on something that you wanted to share, maybe something more about what you're doing or that you have coming up for folks where they can tap in with you, and some words of wisdom to leave folks on. That'd be great.
Sure. I'll give 3 things that would be great for following up. I do have my own podcast. It's called Empower Your Compassion. And in fact, if you go to 𝗲𝗽𝗍𝗲𝗏𝑐𝗿𝑒𝑟yourcompassion.com, it's on my website, and there's links to Spotify, Apple, and YouTube there. You can also go to boundariesthatfeelgood.com and download a free gift. It's just an in-depth one-pager, a very simplified solution, like the number one thing that I feel like helps make boundaries so much easier, because most people are like, man, boundaries are hard. Yeah, they are, but they don't have to be. And boundariesthatfeelgood.com will show you how to make it easier. And if you actually just want to hop straight on a free call with me, because I am always available for a free call with anyone new, you can go to explorelovingboundaries.com and grab a spot on my calendar. And I would love to hear what's going on with you and provide some validation and support and options and resources. Of course, I have my own one-on-one program. We could work together, but even if we don't do that, I got lots of resources to share. So
awesome. Well, thank you so much, Mariya, for being on the show and for sharing your story, being vulnerable, sharing your Gates method, and really teaching us more how to embody those boundaries, especially as women. We need that today, and so much of where I've been going with my messaging is around how to better support women entrepreneurs through relationships, through business, through relationships with self, and boundaries is absolutely one of those key. We didn't get into it much here, but masculine aspects of our being that we really need to embody in order to protect that beautiful feminine that we have inside. And so, I just want to thank all you listeners for making it this far and listening to us. And if you are really wanting to learn more about me and the work that I do with women entrepreneurs, you can catch me across social media at I am Erin Patton. Also, I have resources on my website, erinpatton.com, and the podcast, The Meta Business Millennial. We're here weekly. Right now, we got lots of guests, and I'm just so honored to have someone like Mariya joining our show. So thank you. Big thank you.
Thanks for having me.
For joining. All right. Much love and light, you all. Peace. Did you really love this episode of the Meta Business Millennial podcast? Well, I am honored, and I appreciate you subscribing, leaving a review, and sharing it with your friends, because your feedback allows us to co-create more enlightened conversations. And if you're interested in growing your soul now, head over to my website, erinpatton.com, to find all the show notes, links, and free resources to get your energy activated today. In the meantime, stay bright, my friends. Much love and light. Peace.